First of all, there are the trial records, especially those that give the depositions of witnesses. There are the narratives of witchcraft cases, which usually appear in pamphlet form, and therefore much more readable than these long, involved trial records. Then you have witchcraft treatises by demonologists, many of whom are basing their ideas about witchcraft on the on the trials that they themselves had presided over. And then there are the images of witchcraft that are done by artists who are familiar, in most cases, with demonological theory. And all of these different types of sources are included in the Witchcraft Sourcebook. One of the ways that I've tried to address this in the sourcebook is to include in the website an interactive map where the reader can click on a particular country or a particular region or a particular town or German principality and get basic information about the number of prosecutions in those areas. Well, I think there's really three areas where we have some exciting new research. The first is in the area of demonic possession, which is a phenomenon that is not always closely associated with witchcraft, but it was in this particular period. Secondly, a lot of interesting studies, especially at the local level, on the application and use of torture. To find out that indeed there are very different applications that are used, that the torture is more intense or less intense in certain areas. And then also research on the social profile of witches, and especially on the question of male witches, which have not been the subject of a great deal of research. Well, there are many of them, but I can think of three main ones. So the first is that this was a medieval phenomenon. And the reason for that is that people have these word association games in which they think of witchcraft, they think of torture, they think of the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages. But in fact, these prosecutions took place during this early modern period, which is the period roughly between the Middle Ages and the modern period. And of course, that's the period where you have all these monumental changes in society and the economy and the religion that contribute to this phenomenon, to the increase in the number of prosecutions and executions. The second one, the second myth, is that all the witches were executed. And we have found that, in fact, only about half of the witches who are tried are executed. The third myth is that everybody believed in witchcraft back then. And to some extent there was a widespread belief, both at the popular level and at the elite level, that witchcraft existed. But there was a very, very strong degree of skepticism regarding witchcraft, or at least about certain aspects of the crime of witchcraft. In Harry Potter, Harry Potter actually flies on a broomstick. And it's interesting because he's male, and back then women flew on broomsticks because the broom was a symbol of the female sex, because women swept the house and they would put their brooms outside the door. Men, if they flew, and we do have some images of them, they flew on pitchforks because they were out in the field. And so I often thought that if you're going to have Harry Potter fly, why not have him fly on a pitchfork? But of course, that's not the image. The image that we have is of a witch on a broomstick, and that's universal. By the way, it's also true in England. I mean, we have, even though no English witches flew, nevertheless we have the image, and you see these in the 19th century, in the 20th century. There's the witch, the old crone on a broomstick flying through the air, even though she never did.